everybody. This is Sky Blue Fox, and welcome back to Let's Play A Link to the Craft. In this part, we will be getting the Book of Mudora, exploring the desert, and taking on, and sometimes horribly failing at taking on, the Desert Palace. Ooh boy, have I got a lot to say about the Desert Palace. Oh man, it was so great, but now it's just... oh boy, here we go. Because I finally got some smaller increment rupees, I decided to give the minigame house a try. It's... nice, I guess. I don't know, it's really weird. I think maybe because I tossed 2 rupees in. Like, even though it's 10 rupees, each item counts as 1 push on the pressure plate. So it gave me 2 at once, but I don't know. Anyway, jump cut to the entrance to the desert. Coming up is this small patch of dirt, which also appeared in the original game. I believe its name is called the Hylian Monolith. Either one of those. I'm not sure what it's there for, why it's there. I believe it was mentioned either in one of the instruction manuals, or the strategy guide, or something that nobody knew why it was there either in universe. If I were a nerd, I'd point out that it looked like a bird and then make some connection to Skyward Sword, but I'm not. This little cave here with Mr. Agna, quite frankly, I forget about this place every time I play Link to the Past. Like, when I went through Link to the Past in the desert to record stuff for this playthrough for the LP, I didn't even visit this guy. Like, I don't think most people remember that this guy even exists. You don't even need that exposition on the I feel something happening in the Sacred Land, oh, it must be the Dark World. You don't even need to know that. You'll learn that anyway. It's pretty much just an optional encounter, but I thought I'd show it off anyway. Anyway, coming up is our way into the Desert Palace. So here we go. Get the Book of Mudora. We have been graciously given another spawn point at the beginning of the dungeon, and believe me, we are going to need it. In the older versions of this dungeon, I really liked this dungeon in the older version, because, well, what you're seeing now is basically, if you ever play this newest version as of recording, pretty much what you see is what you get. The doors, they're not normally that glitchy. It's because there's so many enemies stepping on the pressure pads that open up the door. Now, before LPing this, I had made a small post on the Minecraft forums explaining what I thought of the map of the older version that I played, and what improvements he could make. I mentioned that the spawn rate for enemies was a little bit low, how in the Eastern Palace, as I was saying in the Eastern Palace video, there aren't that many enemies other than the few spawns that are controlled by dispensers. And he said he would add, and he did add, more spawners to the world. Unfortunately, I guess this is partially my fault since I didn't mention this specifically enough, but the Desert Palace in the older versions, because it's so dark in here, it had a nice blend of combat and the puzzles already in the older version. So the fact that he added spawners to here too just makes combat become... it just goes overboard. Like, as you can see, we haven't even gotten past the first room yet, and we fought like 10, 15 enemies. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but still, I mean, we haven't even made it out of the first room yet. We've fought a zillion things. Like, it's even worse than getting ganged up by spiders in the Hyrule Castle dungeon, because that was, even though it was controlled, it was only 3, and once you did it, once you beat them, you were okay. Here, because it's so dark down here, and there are so many spawners, there's all the ones that made the dungeon a good balance from the older version, and then there's all the ones that he added for this new version. This just... it goes overboard. Like, I honestly found this extremely frustrating and not fun to play. You're probably hearing that clicking noise. That is a massive glitch, oversight. I don't know what to think, but that was one of my favorite rooms, this where this clicking noise is coming from in the older version. And in this, all the magic is gone. But I spent a good 20-25 minutes on this, just on this one dungeon, because there's so many enemies that it's just, it becomes less of a balance and more like artificially prolonging the dungeon. And like, I mean, I know this is not entirely your fault, Amaroq, because you had a good balance first, and I forgot to mention that I really liked the balance of enemies in the Desert Palace in the old version. But I mean, shoot, we've only made it to like one other room other than the main hall at the beginning of the dungeon, gotten the maps, and we've fought like over 20 enemies now. And even then, like in the older version, the balance was nice. You didn't have stuff ganging up on you like this, like ganging up, just 3 spiders ganging up on you like in Hyrule Castle. That's okay, because even though they're annoying, you still have a decent amount of room to fight. You can move around the room and they'll follow you. But in this, like, you drop down the little corridor to the entrance to the dungeon, where the ladder and the little floating water pool is that breaks your fall, and you immediately get ganged up. Like, I immediately got ganged up by, like, 1 soldier, a bunch of creepers, some skeletons, a spider. Like, I don't even have any room to breathe. Like, I'm just in this little 4 block size 2x2 room trying to fight off like 7 enemies at once, and it's just, ugh. I mean, I don't think I need to really say anything about this to make it more obvious. Like, it's just, how did you go this overboard? Ugh, I don't know. It's just a very frustrating dungeon now, which is especially disappointing because I was expecting this to be a lot of fun. Like, I mean, look at this! Like, how was I supposed to know that was even going to happen? It's just, ugh. I'm just disappointed, really. Part of this is just massive disappointment because I was, like, in the older version, this was like my favorite dungeon because it had the nice balance of combat and the puzzles, and it was really fun. It felt like the difficulty curve was curving. Like, it actually had that curve there. But here, it just feels like it drops you off a cliff, and I mean, I get so frustrated that eventually when I make one of these jump cuts, I've switched to peaceful. I've died once. That death I'll show off at the end of the video. I've died once, I go back down, and I'm just so frustrated that I decide to turn off enemies because there's just too much of them. Like, I'm sorry I'm not commenting on, like, the dungeon's puzzles and stuff. I mean, either way, it's pretty stock. There's some levers to pull, there's some, pressure pads to find under pots. It's not like the Desert Palace really introduced anything particularly new, either in this game or the other one. But I mean, it's not even solely related to this little spot here. You might have noticed that the Desert Palace, and if you've played Link to the Past, you know that the Desert Palace has 4 entrances. It has the one we went through, it has 2 on either side of it, and then it's got 1 behind it. This room, this is the clicking room. This room in the original game shoots marbles from the sides of the walls. Like it's got two little shooters on a set path up and down the wall that shoot marbles at you, and you have to carefully make your way past the marbles. But in this, it shoots flame charges, and it's actually really fun to try and sprint through all those flame charges and take as little damage as possible. Like, that was the highlight of the dungeon in the old version for me. But in this, I don't know whether you forgot to refill them, but they're just out. Like, I mean, I don't know whether it's because of the changes to the redstone circuits, because he said that the redstone circuits in this update were made stabilized because enemies kept screwing with them. But I don't know. Like, this went from my favorite dungeon to being a massive, massive pain in the ass. It was just, ugh. Just terrible. But anyway, around here, near the, that end of the cliff that we were passing, in the original game, there's a piece of heart over there. In this, there's a piece of heart on the opposite end, in this little cave with this weird puzzle that I'm not going to cover because he forgot to refill the piece of heart in there too. Like, when I went and did the puzzle, there wasn't any piece of heart that spit out of the dispenser. And even then, the puzzle's really confusing. Like, it's this big pressure pad puzzle, and if you step on a wrong one, you get surrounded by blocks that pop up in front of you, so you have to jump off of the pressure pad. It's just really confusing. But from here on out in the dungeon, it's fairly straightforward. It's not very maze-like here, thankfully, because the main dungeon part of it is, it's not too maze-like, but there's a lot of rooms, and I mean, one of those rooms, this is my biggest beef with the dungeon in this version, because one of those rooms, both in the original game and in this, all it is an enemy sink. There's no key, there's nothing in there except, like, not even a torch or anything to keep the room lit so that enemies don't spawn. It's just, you go in there, you hit the pressure pad in front of the door, and a bunch of enemies spawn. And then it's so dark in there that enemies can spawn naturally anyway, so you're just getting overwhelmed again. But, thankfully in this version, like, look here! That was 4 creepers, 3 or 4 creepers, and I literally had no room to move because I was surrounded on all sides by enemies. That's not fun, that's unfair. That's just terrible. Like, I don't mean to be mean about this. Like I said, I really love the Desert Palace in the older version of this, but oh my god. But thankfully, the boss spawner in this dungeon actually did work. And he's replaced the 3 Lenmolas with 3 Blazes. We'll be seeing it fairly soon. Those skeletons that are trapped in the I think it's worth mentioning this. The skeletons trapped in those dungeon bars, those take the place of the beamos, the beam statues that circle around and shoot a laser at you if they see you. I think it's a clever idea. I thought that was a really clever replacement, since it makes them harder to dodge, since they have better aim and won't shoot. Like, they always lock onto you because that's the way Minecraft's AI works. But I don't know, I think it's at least a nice substitute. It's a balanced substitute for the beamos. Since you can destroy them, since you can't destroy the beamos, and you can destroy the skeletons. Unfortunately, the room with the flying tiles that hurt you can't be recreated, but he recreated the skull insignia on the floor with pressure pads. Which I thought was at least a nice little touch. Not much else in this room, not much else in the rest of the dungeon, really. See, here again, 2 spiders, a creeper. Like, at the beginning of this dungeon, I also did a minor jump cut so I could go and swap out my rupees. And thankfully we have enough to buy the Zora's Flippers in the next part. But combined with all the rupees that we have gotten from this dungeon, I don't even know if I would have needed to... Like, I would have needed to swap them out because I wouldn't have had room for any items. But God knows how many rupees I have now. But, anyway, here are the blazes, the 3 blazes. Once they spawn, they'll all float up and try and fling fireballs at you. And then once they do that, they're vulnerable for pretty long. And so really they're just pushovers. It doesn't even feel like a boss. It feels like just another controlled spawn. Which is why I've spliced in the Landmolas at the end of this video. Here's some of the inner workings again. But see you in the next part.
Here.